Good morning. Today we heard how God was faithful to Abraham. But I also want you to remember that God is even faithful to us today. God always does what he says he's going to do, even if it's not always the time or the way that we want God to do it. Remember in our story, God promised Abraham and Sarah many descendants, as many as the stars are in the sky. But if you remember back to our Bible story, he only gave Abraham and Sarah one son. And he didn't even give them a son right away. It took many, many generations, including Jacob and Esau and Joseph and so on, and Jesus, and even us, to fill all the stars in the sky with God's descendants for Abraham. God sometimes shows his faithfulness in surprising ways. Let's dig into that a little bit more with an experiment that uses a long word: centrifugal force. Centrifugal force. What I have here is I have a blue bucket, and in a second I am going to pour the water from this vase into the bucket. And after I do that, I am going to spin that blue bucket up and around and over my head. And I want you to see, and I want you to watch closely to what is going to happen to that water inside the bucket. And as you can see, I'm up in front of the church. So I am hoping that this goes well, because there's going to be a lot of water in that bucket, and if that bucket spills, I got a big wet mess I need to clean up. So let's give it a shot. Take the water, and I'm going to pour it into the bucket. Okay? There's quite a bit of water in there. So now, I'm going to take the bucket and I'm going to spin it around. Look closely as to what's going to happen. Ready? Did you see it? Let me try it one more time. Whew, I almost lost it at the very end there. But what happened to the water? It's still dry up here, and there's still water in that bucket. Nothing spilled out of the bucket. What surprised you about that? Were you guys expecting water to come flying out of the bucket? I'm sure some of you probably thought it did, but I know a lot of you are extremely smart, and you probably knew that word, centrifugal force, and you knew what was going to happen. But sometimes our lives feel like that bucket, don't they? There was a time in my life where I didn't know what God was, or what direction God was leading me in terms of my job. You see, I had a really good job as a director of Christian education in a church out in Connecticut. And one day, Julia and I decided it was time to come and move back to Illinois. So I left my job out in Connecticut, and I moved here. And when we moved, it was my hope and it was my plan that I would find a church job right away. Within the first couple of months to a year, I was hoping that I would find a job in a church. But it took over 5 years working in different types of jobs until I was able to get another full-time job. And guess where that job was? Right here at St. John. It took, God's plan had me wait 5 years in between two church jobs. I had to be patient. And I can tell you, there were some times during those 5 years that I didn't feel like God had a plan for my life. And I didn't know what to do. So I want you to take the next couple of minutes. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to talk with somebody in your family about a time in your life that felt upside down and out of control. Parents, please share a time with your children as well. I'll give you 3 minutes. Go. Thank you for sharing. In our experiment with the water bucket, centrifugal force held the water in place. Centrifugal force is a force that pushes things outward as they move around in a circle, which is a good thing because if that didn't work, I would have a huge wet mess that I would have to clean up in front of our church. But God is faithful. And God's faithfulness means that He is going to stick with us even when our life seems upside down. No matter what happens in our life, God promises that He is always going to be faithful. There's an old hymn or song that we sing here in church. It's called "Great is Thy Faithfulness," right? I am going to play that song for you now. I want you to watch the video. Listen closely to the words and worship and pray to God a song of praise for how grateful and how faithful He is to us. So that's how we're going to close, by watching the video, "Great is Thy Faithfulness." We'll see you back here next week with another object lesson for our Bible story.
Let's sing of His faithfulness.
Great is Thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with Thee. Thou changest not, Thy compassions, they fail not.